Bad games. We've all played them. Wait. No, something's wrong here. Oh? Oh? Oh! Well, that's better. Bad games. We've all played them. Whether you're a boomer who played E.T. back on the Atari in 1982, a zoomer who played Big Rigs back in 2003, or even a 1-year-old child who played Battle just last year. For as long as games have been around, these bad games have been always in the shadows trying to just, get a little bit of that revenue as much as they can whenever they can. And what if I were to tell you that Japan, being home to as big of a game industry as it is, has its own fair share of bad games as well? And I don't just mean games like Cho Anarchy or Takeshi's Challenge, both of which have gotten pretty infamous overseas for how bad, but also how bizarrely funny they are. I mean games that are so fundamentally broken, it would actually make you question why most of these games were even released in the first place. And there are swaths of this game that just exist all across Japan's gaming history. And what if I told you that there are actually many people, true connoisseurs of the filth, who have actually gone around and played every single one of these games, and has ranked every single worst game of the year, every year since 2004. In the rest of the world, we have the gaming awards every year to rank the best games from the top. Japan has the same thing, except that it ranks the best games from the bottom instead. And this ranking is known as the KuSoge of the Year Awards, also known as the KOTY. The word KuSoge is quite literally the Japanese word for a bad game, with kuso literally meaning shit. That's the word they use to describe that. And ge being the short form for the word game, phonetically in Japanese due to how the pronunciation works in Japanese. And before you call this list some kind of cyberbullying or something like that, where they're going like, oh, look at little Timmy with his first game ever, look how bad he made it, let's put him on the list. No, this list ain't anything like that, okay, don't worry. Most of the games on this list are either games by big companies such as Square Enix and the like, which are so big that you wouldn't expect them to make something of this quality, or games that either charged or spent so much money in the development that it doesn't make sense for them to be as bad as it is. And that's why these games end up being on this list, and that's why we make fun of them. So what I've done is I've gone around Japan hunting down as many of these games as I can, and I'm going to play through every single one of them to see if they're as bad as people say that they are. And then I'm going to upload the review to YouTube in this form so that you guys can enjoy the sharpened fruit of watching someone having suffered through playing all of these games, as well as so that you guys can see in a bit of a shorter bite how bad these games truly are. This is the... I haven't thought of the name of this yet, whether or not I'll make this into a series or something. So this is the video where I talk about a very bad game. So the game I want to introduce to you guys today is the game that was almost the worst game of the year for 2008. In fact, this game was actually so bad that since its release in October, it was actually expected to be the worst game of the year, only to be ousted in the very last month of the year by a game that was so fundamentally bad that, and I quote the reviewers of the games, that this game, the only reason why it did not win was because that compared to the game that released in October, this game could still be considered a game. Yeah, we are on that level. And so, the game I'd like to introduce today is... I'm not gonna read that out. It's way too long of a title. Let Google do it.
Kamiyorigakuenkouroku KuRuNuGiA.
And yes, that is indeed the Idea Factory logo on the game. So, before I actually go into introducing the history of the company at the time as well as the game, let me preface this by saying a few things, alright? Firstly, I mean, I don't usually wear this, but so yes, I am indeed a fan of some of their games. Like, I know that it's Compile Heart and not Idea Factory that made those games, but Compile Heart is a subsidiary and all that, so more or less the same since Idea Factory doesn't really produce games on their own nowadays. But I want you guys to understand, when I say this, I'm not saying this out of a desire to attack the company or anything like that, okay? But Idea Factory, back in the day, like back when this game was released and the years before that, used to suck a lot. Like, let's get real now, guys. Like, a lot of the games that they have produced never left Japan due to the fact they were just extremely bad. In fact, back in that era, they used to have a brand image that was so bad that most Japanese like consumers would say that if the game was produced by Idea Factory, it was gonna be shit, like without a doubt. So, you know, compared to what they're making today, they really have improved quite a lot. Like, whichever side of the fence you're on, whether you think the games are good or not, they have made improvements. But that said, yes, this game was made by them back in the days where the company used to be very shit, so buckle up, this is actually going to be pretty bad. So yeah, you could really consider the early 2000s and before the dark ages of Idea Factory if you wanted to, where most of the stuff they made was really not very good. Like, there were exceptions of course, but for the most part this was the case. Did you know that they made anime as well? They made this stuff over here. It's not very good. You may have seen others make videos about it. You can go look them up if you want. But yeah, more on this game itself specifically though. A few interesting things I want to point out. And the first is that this game, like all games, it has a wiki. And in Japan, wikis tend to be a lot more documented, and so they tend to be a lot more used as well. Your wiki are the fandom equivalents of the Japan. So this tend to be so well used that for this game, if you were to Google the game, one of the first results that aren't like a place to purchase it is the game's wiki. And on the first page of the wiki, and I shit you not, in the Q&A on the first page of the wiki, there are only 2 questions. One of the questions is, should I buy this game? And the answer itself is just, no, don't buy it. Yeah, we are on that level. We actually are on that level. So, like every other sane person, I did the one reasonable thing that anyone could in this situation. Ooh. Almost dropped something. I bought the game. And the second interesting thing is that this game is actually not listed on Idea Factory's English Wikipedia page either. Because like every other lazy university student trying to squeeze out an essay really quickly, the first place I visited was Wikipedia. And on the Japanese Wikipedia page, I could find the game. It's fine, it's normal, right? So I was actually kind of curious if I could find an English equivalent of the name because it's very long using a lot of Japanese text, so I figured if there is an English one, it might be useful in order for me to like introduce this game instead. Turns out it wasn't even listed on the page. Like, I went through the list, like I'll put it up on screen. Like, you look through all the games from like 2008, right? It is not listed in any of these sections for this game for 2008 at all. Which struck me as a little bizarre. Like, I don't know if there's a reason for this. As it is, it's like, it really does feel like Idea Factory wants to hide as much of their past as they can. You can technically find all of their past releases on their website, although most of them are not very obviously displayed. You actually have to click on a rather small out of the way button, and then you can see all of their past releases, but otherwise, even those seem pretty hidden, so I don't know if this has anything to do with that, but if they were trying to hide it, I'm so sorry that I did this. But, you know, this game is too fun to not talk about at all. Not more people need to know about this, I feel like. Especially since like there's nothing about it that I can find online. And so the third point, which I do apologize if this is a bit boring, it's a bit more for those who are interested in emulation. So I do have a PS2 back there, which I used to emulate the game. And I do have the game itself, so I did both legally with my own copy of both. More so because of the fact that like that does not have a HDMI connection, so with my current modern PC, it's a bit difficult to set it up as well, so I dumped it and played it on the PC. But for those of you who are interested, the game does not run on 1.6 for PCSX2. You're gonna need to use at least the 1.7 unstable. At this point, it's still not the stable branch yet, if I'm not mistaken, when I'm actually recording this, but you gotta use that instead, because if you're using 1.6, it just does not start up at all. So if you're enough of a master chist to want to play this game, you can easily get a copy. I think this game is still largely buyable, not first hand obviously, but you can still find quite a lot of copies of it. You can buy a copy and like play it on your own. Just remember to make sure that your version of PCSX is advanced enough to do it. So okay, I think at this point I spent way too much time talking about the background of the game as well as this whole video as is. So without further ado, let's look at the game itself. How bad is it? Let's find out. Firing up the game, the first thing we're greeted by is the HO Idea Factory logo, which, not gonna lie, After playing this game and looking into the company's past, I'm surprised they actually didn't think of rebranding even once before, considering their bad rep in Japan. That said, the opening itself is pretty mid. Like, the music is very generic to early 2000s anime music, and the opening itself, it's like, wow, it is a little iffy in the art here and there. Overall, it's not too bad. It's serviceable at least. Yet, even this is still better than the title screen that we're gonna see, because I don't know if it's just me, but this title screen as well just feels very cheap. Like, the text font feels like something you could easily find on Japanese Photoshop, and the background of the moon with like some slight particle effects feels like something you could easily find any artist to draw in a very short period of time. Plus, it doesn't really have too much relevance to the game as well, which you'll see in a bit, so all of it just feels a little like they didn't care too much. Now, personally, I would feel that the title screen of the game ought to have at least some level of effort put into it, because it is going to be the first thing that the players are going to see. It's going to give them their first impression of the game and an expectation of what they're going to see ahead, so you would expect at least some level of work into it. But then again, this could have been something of the era, right? Like, maybe games of the era in general just didn't put too much into it. I mean, what other games came out in the year 2008? Like, yeah, I don't know about this. Something, maybe it, even just compared to games of the era, it isn't all too of quality. But yeah, enough of making fun of all of that. As for the game itself, the moment the game starts up, you're being given exposition by a figure you can't see, which is largely very agey and what the Japanese would call chuny, something you would expect like Shadow the Hedgehog or the Dark Flame Master to be giving to you instead. Anyway, once John Cena is done with his speech, you are told to name both the male and female main character of the game, which this could just be my own imagination, but the main male character really feels or looks like the main character for Persona 3, so yeah, I guess we'll name both of the main characters after the main characters of that. Which main male character's name is there's multiple, huh? Yuki. Oh, isn't that the same Yuki as Okay, so we'll name the main male character Yuki Rito, and the female main character will be named after the actual main character of Persona 3, as in the female one from the PSP version of the game. So once you're done naming both of them, Mr. Bing Chilling gives you even more exposition, the same old generic AG text, and then the screen fades to black. After that, you're given some dialogue telling you that you're being woken up as the main male character. The screen fades back in, and you're in a generic looking Japanese classroom with someone who looks like the budget version of Yosuke from Persona 4. Mom, can we have Yosuke from Persona 4? No, son. We have Yosuke at home. Meanwhile, Yosuke at home just looks like this instead. Anyway, he then gives you more exposition, explaining to you through dialogue that the two of you are investigating paranormal incidents happening around the town, including the disappearance of quite a few school-age girls which apparently have been on the rise in the town recently. So, this might be the point where you think, yes, so we're gonna go and look around the town, get to know the world a little, and then, together with him, we'll get into whatever trouble that will develop the plot later. But no, the next thing that happens is that the moment you leave the school, we're introduced first to our sister, and then to the problem that's happening around town, through the sudden appearance of a lady who's screaming and looking for a child. After which, friend and sister give us an explanation of what is going on as well. That said, this exposition is largely for the player and not the characters, and so they are largely unfazed by all of this before them, and decide to just chill and go get some ice cream instead. And this is where we come across the first gameplay segment of the game, I think. So this is where I'd like to introduce you guys to what the game calls its emotional choice system, which, simply put, if you've played any RPG game where your choices are supposed to matter, kind of like the Funny Rain game when the guy shouts his son's name a lot, this is something like that, where you're given a choice of multiple dialogue options, except that instead of having text, you're given 4 fixed emotions, which are always the same for every single choice in the game. So in this case, your sister tells you something happy. Then you're given a choice of, do you want to respond by being happy, angry, show her pity, or show fun? Like the top and bottom option, like, okay, the first 3 options, right? Happy, angry, pity. You can kind of understand, but like happy and fun, like the difference between the two, I don't know, it just doesn't feel very big at times. And the game doesn't do a good job of explaining any of this. It just tells you that you can pick this, it's gonna matter. And I'm very sure, like, we're all certain that this is definitely gonna matter to the game's plot going forward, right? Like every other game out there. Plot twist, it actually doesn't matter. So yeah, this is gonna turn up a lot, and really it's not gonna matter to anything to the plot down from this point onwards, so we can just pretty much treat this as a funny dialogue generator that really does not do anything for us at all. And the weird thing is that on top of this system, you do have normal dialogue choices as well. It's not like they're using this in place of that to save on actually needing to think up more dialogue to put on the box. No, they're actually using both, which just makes it feel even weirder that they are doing this. That's it. Even the text dialogue choices that we're given, they really just don't matter much at all to the grand scheme of things. Like, the first one we're actually given is the choice of like what flavor ice cream you want. And you will notice this going forward a lot as well. Like, you're given a lot of very pointless choices, or choices where you're given the illusion of choice, but actually it doesn't matter. Like, later on, you'll be given the same thing, except that instead of being asked what flavor of ice cream you want, you're being asked what flavor of sauce you want with your hamburger. Because eating rice with sauce and hamburger, and rice is a thing in Japan. So, hot take here. And I don't want anyone to know about this, so don't tell anyone, but I do think that character development is very important. And I mean it is, right? Like, you want to build the bond between the player and the character so that the player can better understand the stakes that are at hand. And when something bad happens to the characters later on, or even something good, the players will feel more emotionally connected to the incidents that are occurring around them. That's it. What this game is doing is not character development. Instead, it's giving you a lot of dialogue that really does not give you any better gleam into the characters themselves, due to the fact that a lot of it is very inane dialogue. The stuff that you would actually talk about with your friends when you got together, you know. You go out and eat ice cream together, you just talk about like how, oh, this is delicious. Or you just talk about like how, like, oh, what flavor burger sauce do you like? Oh, you like that? That's fine, I guess. You know, stuff like that. It's not going to give you any deeper glimpse into the characters. And this happens a lot. Like, okay, right after this point, and there's a multiple points I need to talk about at this point in time due to the fact that there's a lot to take in. So, the moment you're done in this ice cream shop, your friend suggests that the two of you should go and look into even more rumors so as to be able to get even more information before going to the phone booth to investigate it. The thing is, this is the map that you actually use to travel across like the world itself. And I want you to take a good look at it. Yeah, what games came out in this year again? Yeah, I don't know. Like, this itself feels very cheap. And the worst part is that he tells you that you're supposed to investigate rumors. There are indeed fixed points you're supposed to go to, but the game does not hint towards them, nor show you where to go on the map either. You instead go into this entire map, go into multiple points where you're made to load for times that are much longer than the dialogue telling you that no, this is not the right place. So you do spend a lot of time wasted in the game just running around like this, going to points where you learn nothing. And even when you do find interactions in this part of the game, instead of finding out more clues that are going to give you more insight into the crisis that's happening around town, instead you just bump into Fat Friend and learn Fat Friend likes to eat. Stuff like this, which is, I don't know, it feels a bit offensive if anything. And stuff like, you go to a bookstore and you talk about an author who has nothing to do with the plot, and it does not give you any more gleam into the personalities of the two characters as well. And the thing is, and I want to put some emphasis on this because, to me at least, it felt very painful having to sit through all of this, but all this filler, going around the town, talking to people about things that don't matter, this lasts for 50 minutes of the game. Not 1-5, 5-0. So up to this point in the game, before we even get to the phone investigation, 50 minutes of the game has already been spent thereabout on dialogue that does not mean anything. We have not learned anything about the world, not much about the characters, and this much time has already passed. And it's only at this point where you finally actually get some level of plot as you bump into a couple at the ice cream store because you had to go back there at the end of the entire thing. And you have some pointless dialogue with them, but this is only just to show you that the characters exist because they're gonna be somewhat important like 5 minutes from now. Aside from that, you don't have any important ominous dialogue with them to build up that they're gonna be important going forward. Kind of like how you're meeting them in the same way you have met the fat friend, where it's like you're just seeing them there and then going past without knowing who they really are. That said, after this, you finally go on to investigate the phone, which I don't know if I mentioned this before. I don't think I did, but this is just slightly funny. Even though this has nothing to do with the when this game was released. It's more funny now, but they go to a phone booth outside at 2 a.m., which is supposed to ring, and if you pick up the phone, you get disappeared. Is what's the supposed rumor that's going around. Which, yeah, I know there's 1 hour difference between this and most of the Mei challenges nowadays, but no. Clearly this was the inspiration for all those challenges, right? Which would also explain why they're so bad in the end. So sure enough, the phone does actually ring at 2 a.m. and your friend, being the massive pussy that he is, decides not to pick it up and asks you to do it instead. The moment you do, demons do indeed appear, and your friend immediately yeets his way out of there, leaving you to die, most likely so that he can bank your sister in peace. It is at this point that the couple that were introduced 5 minutes before reappear once again to save you. And this is the part that weirds me out a little. They don't know who you are, and this is something that will be emphasized right after this in the plot as well. They save you from the demon, knowing obviously what it is. And yet, at that point, they ask you to join them in fighting the demon. Like, this is the equivalent of a superhero coming in, right? Saving someone from a monster that is like world-ending and all that, and being like, no, you see that monster over there? I'm gonna fight it, and you're gonna help me, to like a random, completely innocent civilian. Like, it's very bizarre. And the thing is, that's it. You know, just the fact that we actually have a battle at this point, right? That we're finally gonna see some level of action is a bit exciting, right? We're about an hour into the game right now. They've built up to this moment for so much. Surely we're gonna get an interesting battle, right? No, I mean, it's not too bad, right? I mean, this battle system is a bit old, but there are many games that still use it, and if used right, it could be used to good effect, right? I'm sure that, you know, they could do something unique with it, like give it very flashy, unique animations, or maybe add some level of unique gameplay to it, right? I mean, if you try using the skills or attacking here, it'll be like, oh, that's it? Okay. And another thing I want to talk about is the fact that this system has very little good feedback given to the player to tell them what's going on. I can't use it? Wait, why can't I use this? Oh, I understand. You're expected to understand what to push, and on top of that, you're not given any explanation as to why something does not work. Like, the characters actually do have something akin to a union skill where they use a skill together with someone else. They give you a few union skills at the start, and this is probably the most bizarre one, and the one that became actually quite a big meme in Japan, which even became a meme outside of this game, which is this skill over here.
Friendship power.
Yeah, the power of friendship. Mind you, this is the first time you're meeting either of these characters. And together with the male character from the couple, despite the fact that you just got saved by them and you have never met them to this point, and this is something that will be emphasized after this again, you have the skill, the power of friendship. And the description even says that this is a skill that has been attained after a long time of grueling trials and tribulations that you have gone through together. I don't know what's going on. Okay, I had to jump my head a little in the recording to get the video of the skill itself, but I wanted to show this to you guys earlier since, you know, this skill should be something very dramatic, right? I mean, it's a skill with its own separate window, the mana cost uses the mana of both characters. If you think about games like Tales of Vesperia and, well, Persona as well, your team skills tend to be a little more dramatic with like flavor text between the two and some interesting animation showing them working together. Let's see how it looks in this game. Yeah, that's it. Were you expecting more? I mean, if you were, you're clearly watching the wrong video right now. The worst part is that none of this is explained as to why the skills can't be used. The game just gives you a beep sound and a boop sound without first explaining to you how any of the systems work. So your mana and HP, MP and HP bars as well, like the colors are reversed from what most games would use, with HP being blue and mana being red instead. Which, that in and of itself is not a problem, but it's just two numbers without explaining what each number is either. Nothing is ever explained, and they expect you to understand, which, user experience wise, I don't think it's a very good thing. But yeah, this is all. Like, this is the end of the battle. You could have just pushed the auto battle button, which is at the bottom right, and the battle would have ended all the same within like just 3 hits apparently. And this is something I tested out later on as well. And then we move on to the results screen, which in and of itself, it just feels a little weird as well. Like, okay, listen to the music just for a bit, right? Yes, the music is indeed on the 5-second loop. And the icing on the cake is that after being given your experience points, you're told to add stats for only the main character, but you're never told what any of these stats will actually affect. Like, you can tell that it says strength, magic, defense, and luck, but you're not told what they affect. You're expected to assume that they work the same as other games, although even in other games how these stats work varies a lot depending on the game, so I really don't know what they're expecting us to take away from any of this. The weird thing is that most of the other characters, their stats are added automatically, and it's hard to tell even from the way they attack, like what the different types of scaling actually affect, especially since this only becomes apparent by the end game. Like, at the start of the game, the gains you get from adding the stats are so small, so insignificant that you really cannot tell what they do. And I find it to be a bit pointless, this whole system. It could have been better explained and made more in depth, and maybe that would have been interesting, but not in its current form. And yeah, the music itself constantly looping while you're trying to figure this out. Not so bad at the start of the game, but as time passes and you get more and more into how bad this game is, it actually starts to get more annoying having to listen to this loop over and over as well. That's it. Finally finishing the battle, you're given 3 minutes of plot development where the couple actually explain to you everything that's happening around you, that they know at least, and what they think your power is. And then they discuss things among themselves when you're undead, and that's also told to the player, but that aside, after that you go back to your daily life again. Like, this is not the start point like in Persona 3 where you join the organization to defeat the evil because it has been discovered that you have powers. Instead, you just go back to your normal life. And then after that, you just forced to interact with more characters, with most of this actually having no plot relevance, and this lasts for another 40 minutes because once again, you are being given a specific task, which this time is you meet the fat friend again and another glasses friend, and you decide to explain to them what's going on. Plot twist, these two people do not matter to the plot at all. They just appear here and there as a funny, while doing nothing at all. So instead of explaining it to them right where you are then told to just go and find somewhere to explain this to them, and you're not told where to go either. So you run around town getting more filler dialogue, and then finally after that, you go to the park and you tell them what's going on. So, surprising to no one, no matter how much you tried to push the story to them, they refuse to believe it and just laugh it off, which you wouldn't expect from anyone in this situation at the time, since there's no reason for them to believe that anything this crazy was actually happening, right? That said, the problem I have with this scene is just the fact that you're explaining it to these two students who, one, are not able to do anything about it, and two, which you'll only see later on in the plot, have no relevance to the plot at all. So this scene, which actually could have had some weight, like if they had gone to the police instead, and the police threw them out of the station, telling them to stop wasting their investigation time, this would have increased the stakes in the story due to the fact that now you know that the people who are supposed to be protecting the people of the city do not believe what's actually happening. So it's up to you and your motley band of people to save the people who are missing, as well as to investigate this further yourselves. After this, we're treated to another 20 minutes of filler where Budget Yosuke tries to tell you that he wants to confess to your sister, which it sounds like it would have been an important plot point, except that he spends 10 to 15 minutes beating around the bush, and 5 minutes asking for your advice in dialogue options that make no point to the plot whatsoever. What is important is that right after this, he actually gets attacked by demons alongside your sister, and your sister gets kidnapped. You are then locked into a battle one-on-one against a demon, which you just kill in one hit. Like, there's nothing to the battle at all. You just push one attack button and it ends. And one thing you realize is that this is gonna be the story for like 90% of battles in the game. So up next is one of my favorite dialogue options from the game, because of the fact that it actually shows you in full extent like how pointless your choices are in the grand scheme of the game. So your friend is visibly shaken after your sister gets kidnapped, and the two of you decide to look for her. You're given 4 choices on what to do here. No matter which choice you pick, you will eventually be led to the 4th dialogue option. And it leads in the funniest way of all. It's not like whichever you pick, it will go to the 4th. If you pick the first option, it will then remove the first option and give you the last 3 options again. You pick the second option, it will do the same thing again, and it will just delete every single choice until you're left with the 4th choice. However, if you pick the second or third option first, it will delete all choices above it and leave you with only the remaining bottom choices. So yeah, no matter what you do, there is no difference. The dialogue does not change at all. It does not even affect like whether or not you're able to save her because you wasted too much time. It's all pointless. And I love it so much because it really shows best like how pointless most of the dialogue choices in this game are. So what happens next is just that you're unable to find her. You involve your other 2 friends who in the end decide to help you for some reason. Nothing comes out of it, and then the game just cuts 3 weeks later where your sister is still missing, and Budget Yosuke has also gone missing after 2 weeks of like trying to look for your sister on his own. So your character is visibly depressed, and you have a lot more filler as Fat Friend tries to cheer you up by taking you around town, where you have filler conversations which do not show you being given scenes that would cheer you up. You just see random things happen again, like you going to buy more food with him because that's a thing that fat people do apparently in this game. And then you're just ambushed by 3 imps, which you just dispatch with ease, basically with just the push of the attack button 3 times. And there's really just nothing to it at all. Then from there, the game just progresses on to nighttime, where for some reason it takes 3 weeks for the couple that you initially met to decide that this is the day where they want to work with you to investigate the disappearance of your sister and everything else. So this is another great scene because it shows you how amazingly like pointless and annoying some parts of the game can actually be. So together with them, you're going to investigate the town and search for your sister. Fun fact, once you get to this point, there's nothing in the town. You're just going to run around to every single node. You get a one-liner with the very horrible loading times I mentioned before, saying she's not there. And then you can just go back to the starting point and leave. Fun fact, you can actually leave straight away without actually searching. It makes no difference to the game. And it saves you a lot of time because if you ran around, you would basically, this is the point of the game where you actually get random encounters. And the random encounters, like the force encounters, have a 5-second or to 10-second load in. And at the result screen, it takes another 5 to 10 seconds to load out. All in spite of the fact that the battle itself takes less than 5 seconds. And can be solved by just pressing auto battle. So it's very boring. You are stuck in spending more time in load screens than in anything else at all. And you might think that like, yeah, this is going to give you EXP to grind to get stronger for later, but as you'll see later, this is all pointless, especially for boss battles. So after this, another week of in-game time passes, and you're given a lot of filler, basically being reintroduced to characters you already know by other characters, because they don't know that you already know these characters. And you're forced to run that night loop again once, with a scene that in one of the areas is pointless, it's not needed for the story, but it gives you a bit of foreshadowing as to who the final boss is. Which is cool until you realize that, like, in another 5 to 10 minutes of gameplay, you go to the tower in the middle of the city, and the final boss reveals himself to you anyway at that point, so that's not much of a build up for anything at all. At this point, you're actually locked into a battle with the final boss of the game, which you can't win, for better or for worse. I don't know, at this point I really don't know if I actually want this game to just end at this point, or be endable at least at this point, so that we can save ourselves from the suffering, but here you lose the battle, and then he just chopped off the main character's arm in a scene that is not depicted at all. It was so confusing at first that I didn't even know what happened, because you just get a slash sound, the main character screaming, and it's explained later on by someone else that his arm has been cut off and replaced with a cursed arm of some sort, which I would like to believe is just one of those very small, like, hands that you can stick on your finger and wave around. Like, it just gets replaced with that instead. So at this point the game gets a little dramatic. It tells you that he has successfully completed the ritual, that he's gonna... So at this point, the game gets a little dramatic, telling you the ritual has been completed. He tells you that he has opened the gate to hell and monsters are gonna destroy the world. If this was a movie, this feels like it would be the second act low point of it, because there's still something within him, his inner... I guess it won't be an inner demon in this case, huh? His inner angel is trying to stop him or something like that. It's not very well explained. And then you are saved, you're brought out, where they try to remove the curse that's on your arm. And this is very bizarre, but in this, like, end of the world scene, the twins that dine and dash at the very start of the game, who have been barely developed to this point, they come back and they introduce themselves as someone very important, saying that they can save you, like some kind of deus ex machina. It's very weird, because it has never been explained or shown that they have this kind of powers at all. And now what they're doing is they're just going like, oh yeah, we can save him. And instead of doing that, there's just some slapstick moment that occurs for like 10 minutes where they say that no, they don't want to do it without money. And that goes on for a while. And then in the end, all they actually do is just sit on top of you, or about beside you, and just pray? I don't even know what they do. Instead, you're forced to battle with demon inside yourself, an actual, like, RPG style battle, like the rest of the battles in the game. Which you can also auto that battle, no sweat. You know, the main character is so broken that everything is easy for him. And this leads to another very tonally bizarre scene where after you wake up, there is a slapstick scene where they continue to argue about the money that was meant to be paid to rescue you. And right after that scene, you're just told that Yosuke has died. Like, this whole game just feels like an emotional roller coaster, because it's like, oh, something bad is happening, oh, okay, now good stuff is happening, and then suddenly, oh, your friend has died. Haha, funny memes right before that, because why not? There, you're then contacted by someone who tells you that you need to contact the past somehow. Like now there's time travel shit appearing in the game as well. Like, we're just going there because why not? You're told to do it, and then you're just expected to know where to go, where you just run around the entire town, getting into forced encounters again, until you finally realize you need to go to the phone and call the past, because the phone can somehow connect to another world, which is the past, and not just demons prank calling you at 3 AM. Like, it's getting very weird. So you make the call, and the game then shifts over to the female protagonist. Yes, 3 hours into the game, you're shifting to another protagonist. Don't worry, this is all gonna end pretty quick as well, and we'll just be moving on with the game. So the female protagonist starts a story with her seeing the phone. Whether or not you decide to pick it up doesn't matter, you're just gonna get attacked by a demon. And some guy swoops in to save you. This guy is apparently just the main villain, except different, maybe the past version of him. He comes in to save you, but you can kill the enemy in the battle with the female main protagonist in one hit. Ah yes, truly this game was the epitome of female empowerment back in its day. Lara Croft? Female protagonist? Get out of here. Nugya, this is where it's at. This is the optimal, the best female protagonist out there, clearly. So after the battle, you realize there's a mark on your hand. The guy introduces himself and asks you to get the mark checked out at his organization, which happens to be the organization that the couple and most of the other characters in the future happen to be in. You agree, and the next day when you're supposed to go with him, The main character just tells him, no, I do not want to go together with you, I'll make my own way there instead. You are then forced to walk around the map until you get there on your own, just because she doesn't want to walk alongside him because of some etiquette thing, which once again is not marked on the map. Thankfully this time the organization's name is actually the name of the area itself, so if you manage to walk all the way there, you will know what it is, but you won't know till you get there is the problem. Arriving there, he greets you at the front, and instead of actually bringing you to get the mark on your arm checked out, he instead asks you to join him in his investigations of the demons that are causing disappearances. So you get introduced to members of his team, and you go around investigating stuff in ways that do not matter. Like, it's not like a Phoenix Wright game where you're actually investigating something in a way that will have an impact on the plot. You're just told to make dialogue options that will lead to the same result no matter what. Like, it's not like if you choose A, they'll say something and then go to the point, or if you choose B, they'll say something and go to the point. If you choose A, you just get your time wasted, and then you'll be forced to pick option B, and this is going to repeat as you join him in his investigation. After a lot more nothing, he finally introduces you to Faust, who apparently is alive in this world as well. The guy who's just briefly introduced in the future. And for some reason, in order to study the mark on your arm, in the biggest sexual harassment move, which probably ought to have gotten Faust arrested, he asks you to take off your top to investigate the arm. No matter what decision you make, you will get strong-armed into doing it in the end. And indeed, your character takes off her top, he only checks her hand, and then he says he's done. Like this is all like a very roundabout way for him to sexually harass her, I'm sure, but yeah. Apparently he just gets away with it completely. You can imagine if he did it today, Twitter would be there to cancel him, but nope. Good thing for him, he did it hundreds of years ago. So after that traumatic ordeal, you're told to then patrol the town with the rest of the team, where apparently a new point has popped up. And yes, that actually is Stonehenge in Japan. Because yeah, clearly the Stonehenge was a thing in Japan all these years. All those people who played Civ 6, the thing that gives you the great prophet, yeah, that didn't come from anywhere else in the world. Clearly a Japanese thing. So the weird thing is, and this is actually very important to the game and it's not explained, Stonehenge is where you learn skills for all characters. But the thing is, the first time you go there and you get your cutscene, after it's done, you're then sent back to wherever the scene they're in started from. Not the Stonehenge scene, but the entire scene itself. Which for me was quite a far ways away. After that happens, you're then expected to go back to Stonehenge a second time to learn skills. The game does not explain this at all. And what's worse is that it actually grays out the icon for the Stonehenge, making it feel like there's nothing important there, even though you can actually go back to learn skills. Hey, me from the future here. I just noticed this while editing the video, so I figured I may as well put it in. So for the scene with Stonehenge that I mentioned before, it's not that it is completely not hinted at all. It's just that, like at this scene here, where they give you the tutorial on Stonehenge, they actually fail to use the same term for it. So instead of calling it Stonehenge, they give it this separate term, which calls it the Kamiyori giant rock formation instead. So I guess they did give us the information, although it was just in a way that was confusing at the time itself. So after some point, it's then revealed that you are the Miko, the priestess that is needed to seal the demons, and that there's another person that's needed, the priest, which is the main character in the future who is not there. Therefore, in order to seal away the ever-increasing number of demons, the main villain's good version in the past decides to sacrifice himself as the catalyst in place of the male guy. So him being a big simp and sacrificing himself for you, you survive and he gets pulled into the demon realm permanently, while you basically get to seal it off and save the world. After this, you get a slightly sad emotional moment where the characters are all sad that their leader, which is the good version of the bad guy from the past, they share a moment together, mourning their lost leader before the female main character finally wanders back to the phone booth that started it all. It is there that she finally picks up the call from the main character from the future, at which point they finally explain to her, after everything they've seen till now, what has actually happened in the future, and that they need her help in order to solve this great calamity that's befalling them all. It is at this point where the game finally travels back to the future, but instead of the female main protagonist telling us what to do next, a new character who has never been introduced up to this point at all suddenly appears, and in the laziest writing I've seen in a long time, This Castlevania bootleg character looking ass tells us that he has the solution to all of our problems. That if we follow what he's prepared, apparently, he has already had a ritual in place that can send us back into the past. And this ritual, like, I find this to be the worst part of the game. Like, in all ways, shapes, and form, this thing is actually horrible and torturous to the player. Okay, so what happens is that you need to go to 7 points, which appear consecutively, one after the other, once you cleared the one before it, right? So you need to go to the 7th point. This first point is at the other end of the map from where you start. So you go up there, you go to the point, and then you slowly go point by point through the map. And the thing is, instead of being like 7 points that form a full circle, you're made to go through the equivalent of 2 circle loops around the entire map thereabout. Which, with the game's slow load times for dialogue options, as well as the fact that the game still has random encounters at this point, so you're gonna end up in a lot of random encounters that are gonna waste a lot of time in load screens. You're actually burning a lot of time, not so much because you're advancing the plot, but because you're stuck in load screen after load screen. And the worst part is that if you're going one round around the map, this could have been reduced at least, but instead, they make you go to 7 points that are located in 2 loops around the map. And when you get into each point, you're just given a throwaway one-line dialogue like, yes, let's go! And then you attack the monsters. And for the sake of that one line of dialogue, you're made to wait even more because the load screens for dialogues as well are actually pretty long. All this in service of you realizing at the end of the 7th point that there's one point you couldn't seal, and that you need to go back to the phone, call the past, and ask the people in the past to do the same thing as well. Alright, I give up. Good night. Show's over. Just kidding, the torture still has to continue, doesn't it? So you go back into the past, you play as the characters from the past, and then you're made to do this entire loop twice as well. After which you call the future and let them know what's happened. Yeah. Because apparently that's a thing that had to happen. So not only did you have to experience the horribleness of excessive load times on the loop once. You know, if you thought once was bad enough, no. You're clearly not enjoying the game enough. You need to do it again, so that you can truly understand how great the world travel and the monster spawns in this game are. So once they have collected all of the points in the past, they call it future, and then you're finally told that, yeah, let's go back to the point that we couldn't seal before and seal it again now. So you go back there, you seal it again, and then you can finally go back to the tower, enter it, and face against the final boss. So he's actually shocked that you're still alive. Yeah, big shock because he thought he killed you, but then this is the point, apparently. Let me just be clear. We are about 4 hours and 30 minutes into the game at this point, okay? 3 hours in when we started the female protagonist part. Now we're facing the final boss at 4.5 hours in. I did not skip out side quests. I may have missed a few scenes here and there. That's about it. Because this game has no side quests. 4.5 hours, we're at the end of the game. More or less. Because it's the final boss. So, all this in service of a hopefully dramatic final boss fight, right? Yeah, the final boss fight is not good at all. And one thing I did not mention till now is that one of the skills you can learn from Stonehenge on specifically 2 characters in the game is a stun skill. One thing I did not mention up to this point, because I only realized as well that you can learn skills very late in the game, is that status ailments in the game are permanent. Whatever skill you use with a status ailment, it will last until the end of the battle. You see where this is going, right? You have a stun skill, which you can use on most mini-bosses near the end game because that's around the point where you finally get access to Stonehenge. All mini-bosses can be killed with this, and there were some that at the future part at certain ritual points where I did kill them with this as well, as you can see here. Yeah, very gripping gameplay, I know. Like, this is clearly Game of the Year material right here. Oh well, Kuso Game of the Year material right here. So you might think, this can be used on mini-bosses. Shouldn't be usable on final boss, right? That's right, you can actually use this on the final boss as well. At which point the final boss battle is just you pushing auto battle, going downstairs, paying your taxes, coming back up, and the battle will probably settle itself. Like, no joke, I actually took the time during this battle. I don't know how long it lasted in the end or how long I waited at the wait screen. I just pushed the auto button and then I just went to like pay my utilities bills and came back and then it was done. Because, yeah, that's how you play a final boss battle, right? Turns out that was actually not the final boss battle, even though the game played it out to be. So what happens is that this makes it feel like the start of the third act, right? Where your party is reinvigorated and you're finally back to beat the final boss and he loses and he runs away saying, I'll be back next time. And you might think that like, yeah, this means there's going to be another few hours of journey into the game, right? It shouldn't just be 5 hours in the 4.5 hour game play up till this point. Right? No, he says he's going to be back in the future. 5 minutes later, after a brief conversation, you're actually going to pursue him. And you fight his final boss version where he's turned into a monster instead. And it's at this point when we're at the final boss of the game where the two sides finally meet each other. Which feels like it ought to make for a pretty cool scene, right? After all this time playing as both sides, you finally get to use both of them together as one big party against the final boss. Is what would happen if this was a much more interesting game, but instead the game gives us a very contrived reason to have a separate mini-boss, or secondary boss rather, who has not been named till this point. We just get another boss out of nowhere, and we are told that the past and the present parties have to separate themselves too, deal with these two different bosses. So only one party can deal with the big bad, and the other party has to deal with the neighbor's kid that no one wants to deal with, basically. So you would think, right, both sides would actually have a reason to want to deal with the final boss themselves. For the people from the past, it's due to the fact that this is someone who was close and dear to them, and so they have a sentimental reason to want to bring closure, as well as their obligations to the organization as well to bring about peace and ensure that, you know, the future actually continues in a way that isn't horrible. Meanwhile, for the people in the future, it's more of a less wholesome reason, I guess. They kind of want to take revenge for all the people they knew who were technically killed by the guy, like Bootleg Yosuke, who did die according to the game. So we know that quite a few people important to the main characters have died, and therefore there's this desire within them to not only bring this whole thing to an end, but to get revenge for those people as well. You would think that this would be a dramatic scene where they would like come to terms and discuss it out, right? But no, the game just gives you a dialogue option. Pick one or the other. The main male character gets to choose, and the other side will just go along with it regardless. But both sides will accept whatever he says, apparently, even though they just met. So, at this point, which it doesn't matter which you choose, you go into a battle with the final boss and the final side. Secondary, I mean, it's not even his second form. It's just a separate being that's there as well. You fight both battles. Turns out, stun also works on both of these bosses, so yeah. Instead of just doing nothing while fighting the bosses, I actually decided to do a little funny in the background, like this. So I'm curious as well, right? How long would this final battle actually take? Because I get the feeling that the stun skills are going to work here as well, so let's see, right? I've got my controller over here. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to... No, the main character attacks. Attack. Stun. Attack. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the green screen behind me and try to get the thumbnail of this video done. Basically, the picture taking for it at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the auto button. Press the auto button. Turn the camera up maybe over there. And I'll be right back. Let's see how quickly I can do this, right? So I do have an idea of what I want to do for the thumbnail. We're gonna take the picture of the guy, you know, doing the power of friendship attack. I'm gonna shot myself into that and I'll use that as the thumbnail. Right? Okay. Maybe a little higher and more like this. move this small bit there. Okay, so we're gonna do it in a funny suit as well, because it'll probably be funny, I think. Yes, okay, my entire face is covered. We'll do this. And this. And I've got my chopsticks here, right? Chopsticks here. What I'm planning to do is, we're just gonna do like this. Something like this, and then I'll move the chair a bit and just do like this. We'll take a few angles, like what do I do next? Yeah, I think that should be enough angles, right? Maybe. For the video. I don't know. I hope so at least. It's still not over, is it? Ah! There we go. There we go. Oh, fuck, my collar. It's all fucked. And there you go, that's the final battle. Or the first half. I believe there's a second half to this, but something tells me the second half ain't gonna be that much harder either. Alright, so there is a second half to this. But you know what, since like, I mean we're already done and all. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna do the reverse. Although you might think that we're kind of screwed now since like I don't really have anyone who can stun, but no. This guy has the exact same skills as the other guy, so yeah, we're pretty much done here at this point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like pack up everything while this boss battle plays itself. You wouldn't believe it, like, even wearing this suit for just a few seconds is already so hot, like. This is the thing, right? How did the people who designed this game not think or attempt to do this? They knew, they had to have known that the moment they implemented a skill like this, where it's a stun that's permanent and usable on the final bosses, something like this is gonna happen, right? Since it's all enemies. How did this even make it into the final game? Like the bosses, I actually tried playing against them after that as well. They actually do have unique attacks and unique gimmicks that would actually make the battle engaging. But you just feel disengaged from the game because the game just lets you do this. You know what I'm saying? They give you the tools to beat the boss in a way that's completely broken. And yet they just expect you to enjoy the... I don't know. Anyway, once that's all over, the game finally reaches its conclusion. The walls are reverted. Everything is right. All of the trials and tribulations you've gone through are forgotten. The wall has forgotten everything that has happened. Everybody's memories are wiped clean except for the people involved in it. Your friend who's died, your sister who's brainwashed, all of them are fine. Everyone is back to normal. They don't remember your sacrifices or everything you did. The only people who do are the people who were there with you. And the thing is, at this point, they still had the gall to dramatize it, right? And make it seem like there's gonna be a sequel, like, yes, our battle was over, but the war has just begun. And then this dramatic talk like that, but thankfully, I don't know, I don't know if I actually would like to see a sequel for this game at this point, but there was no sequel, so all of this was in the service of nothing. And then at this point, you go into the credits of the game, and yeah, normal, very mid credits. The fact that all of the characters were actually laughing at you, or the first few were laughing at you in the credits, made me feel like the game was actually just like laughing at the players for playing through the entirety of this game. But midway through the credits, right? The credits get cut, and you're actually put back into the game, where you're told, since like a lot of time has passed since then, I think they said like 2 months has passed, the redhead guy in the couple, he comes and tells you that there is another incident and it's solving in the town, and that he wants your help in solving all of this. So you go with him, you go around town, having pointless dialogue with everyone. Okay, maybe not so pointless. You go around town having dialogue with everyone, seeing where they have been in the 2 months since all of this happened, reuniting with the rest of the party that's going to help you defeat the new final boss, apparently secret boss, evil thing. So it makes it feel like a cop-out, right? Like, was the credits pointless? Is there going to be another few hours of gameplay to this? No. You just walk around town having long load screens for dialogue, talking to everyone, and once you've gathered the entire party together, you just go back to the clock tower. You find the new evil final boss there, and you face off against this secret hidden boss. If you thought that was going to be a tough battle, you clearly have not seen what is happening in this video this entire time. That's right. Yeah. Then the battle ends. You are told that all of you have been cursed with some evil for killing the big evil. And then the game just ends over there. Like, you're told that you have been cursed, all of you have been cursed with some great curse for defeating this thing by it. And then the plot does not resolve that, you just go on your merry way. It makes us feel like they were planning a sequel, but maybe after seeing how badly the game did, they just gave up with it. I don't know. All I know is that I'm just glad the game's over because you're gonna play the entire... They're gonna play the entire credits again. They really want people to know that they made this game, huh? Playing through the entire credits again, from start to end, just so we can see like all of the names of people who are involved. Also, who is that character? I played through the entire game and he did not appear at all. Like, I even had a cutscene at the epilogue of the game where they talked to him again, but he did not even appear up to this point at all. Like, but yeah, at least now we can say that we have completed the second worst game of 2008. Right, it's been a week since I recorded the previous part of this video. I initially recorded a different conclusion as well on the day itself, but the more I thought about what this game was, as well as after talking to others about it, and reflecting a bit on what I've seen, I started to feel like I would be better off just redoing this entire conclusion, because there's a lot more to it than I initially was thinking of. So this might just be due to the fact that I was quite frustrated as well while playing the game previously, so my original conclusion was going to be a lot more just dissing the game itself. But then as I spoke to people about it, one thing I came to understand is that a lot of this game, what makes it bad is not the individual components of what I've been criticizing so far. Like, a lot of the things, like some of it I was aware of myself as well when I was making the video, but like the battle effects not being very good. It's like, yeah, it could have been better, but at the same time there are plenty of games that work well even without stuff like this. Like, if the game itself is interesting, like you could take something like Dwarf Fortress for example. The game is all just completely in ASCII, but it works because the game is interesting and therefore the lack of effects isn't a problem. The same could be said for the simplistic battle system, right? There are plenty of RPGs out there that would still use such a simple system, but because they have a good plot and the game itself has other components that make it interesting, you kind of can just brush by it and without paying too much attention to it. Whereas stuff like, yeah, the broken balance itself, I don't know how to justify that, but like another thing that I kept complaining about as well was the playtime of the game, it being about 4 to 5 hours only with no replayability. But even then, if the price of the game and the quality of the game match this playtime of it, it wouldn't usually be too bad as well. Like, it would be justifiable for it to be short, right? Like, if you wanted to take this idea to the extreme, Milk Inside a Bag of Milk, that's a game that was only about 15 minutes long. And the thing is, even though it was that short, the plot itself was mysterious and captivating enough to keep you going for that 15 minutes. And the game only cost 99 cents, more or less, give or take, depending on your currency. But when a game is that cheap, as well as that interesting for its short playtime, you would tend to look the other way. If anything, it might even be a good thing because then it doesn't overstay its welcome. So for me, like when I bought this game, I think I only paid about 1,000 yen, so that's about like $10 US. So if most people around the time this game released purchase this game for around that price, it wouldn't be too bad, right? Oh no. That's not good now, is it? Like, that's around the same price as oh no. Yeah, and this ties back to what I wanted to say about the game just overall not having enough good points about it to justify all the problems that it has. That when this game is looked at the sum of its parts, it's actually even worse than when you look at each individual part of the game that has a problem. Because I'm of the belief that if you look at the game, as well as all of its design choices, you can more or less get an idea of what the designers at the time were trying to do. And with this game, I can't really see it being like something that most of the developers who worked on it were seriously hoping to see succeed. Especially when you think about everything that is surrounding this game. So the thing is, the dated battle system itself is not too bad, but when you couple that with the lack of a tutorial to help ease players into the game and help them understand the game better, as well as all of the systems that they should use to get ahead in the game, the lack of clear feedback to players so that they can better understand, like when they push a button, why does nothing happen, the fact that the game's balance is completely broken, and the fact that there's lack of battle effects to at least entertain the players during this very short and mundane battles, the fact that the long load times of the battles were actually longer than the actual battles themselves, and the fact that there were so many random encounters that you would spend almost an hour in battles, spending more time in load screens than in the actual battles. All this comes together, right, to make the main battle systems of the game feel so horrible. Like, it's not any one problem with it. Like long load times, which depending on the game, it could be justifiable, but the amalgamation of all of these points that makes like the battle system, for example, so bad. Then when it comes to the stories portions of the game as well, the lack of key tutorials for like systems such as your skill learning, which due to the fact that they never taught you how to do it, you could potentially go through the entire game not realizing what that was a thing, and actually suffering very badly if you didn't know you could stun the final boss as well, right? Especially if you didn't bother to grind heavily throughout the game. Then there's the fact that the plot itself is very generic, it's full of filler. Then they get you to run around the map a lot with a lack of direction. Like, most of the time, they don't give you map markers. They don't like tell you where to go, like go to A or go to the pond or something like that. They just tell you we need to find person, and they expect you to run around the entire map, wasting a lot of time. Then there's the fact that traversing the map at times also gets quite problematic. Like there were actually times, and I didn't show this I think in the gameplay video itself, but like at the bottom of the map there's that one like V-shaped segment like this, and if you wanted to go diagonally up like this, you would actually need to push right, but if you wanted to go left like this, you would have to push up instead. And the thing is, when the game actually adds that one point at the bottom during the infinite loops that you had to do for the exorcism ritual, they actually flip the controls of all of this. So to go right, you will now need to push up. To go left, you will push left. And then to enter the new point that has entered on the map, you will push right. And the thing is that the game does not give you any direction of push what to go where. So just trying to go around the map, you end up fumbling once in a while when you realize that the controls that you have been used to all this while just stop working as well just because they change stuff up. Then you also have the fact that most of the choices that you have in game don't actually affect the ending of the game. Since I played through the game twice, just a second time just to suffer even more, to see if there was actually an alternate ending, and I actually went to check the wikis and all that for the game as well. Turns out there isn't, and it turns out that as a result of that, all the choices you make throughout the game amount to nothing. You don't get something like Persona where you get together with a different character even though the good ending is still the good ending regardless. Nothing of the sort. You don't get unique endings to your characters to show you bond more either. You don't get something like in Persona where after you clear the story, you can walk around town and see how everyone that you've spoken to with their arcanas has resolved their life problems. You don't get that either, so a lot of it is really just the game breaking the tempo of conversations without giving you any agency in the plot to actually do anything that could impact the endgame story. This is especially the case because in the middle of the story, for example, you would suddenly be forced to wait for the emotion feeling system to pop up in your face. Press the button, then watch it slowly fade away for them to give you text that doesn't really matter, just to react to what you pick in a way that is very nonchalant, like them just brushing past what you said pretty much, or what you emoted there at that point. And this causes the tempo of the game to feel very unnatural as well, because every time I'm getting into the game and I'm feeling like I'm getting into the story itself, it feels like at the most impromptu of moments, the game is just gonna shake me and go no, you get out of the story, you interact with us now. And then they just pull you into this slow-moving, unintuitive system where you don't know what it's gonna do. And even when you interact with it, the game just gives you a one-liner response before loading for 2 to 3 seconds just to get you back into the rest of the story past the selection points themselves. Then there's also the fact that the endgame feels very rushed, like you saw for yourselves, after the point where the boss just goes haha, guess we'll meet again. And then he just suddenly appears within 15 minutes of the game as the final boss, and the game just ends after you beat him that second time. Then there's the fact that the endgame feels very rushed. You saw it yourself as well just now, with the final boss who just basically goes haha, guess we'll meet again, and then disappears for the mid-game, only to come back within 15 minutes as a separate boss who has lost his sanity for you to beat him again, and the game immediately just goes to credits after that. So that segment just feels very rushed. You would have expected the game to have gone on for another few hours at that point, just due to the fact that this feels like a mid-point battle, but it just ends off very abruptly. You've got the fact that there are characters who are just there as plot hole fixers, the twins who feel more of a Deus Ex Machina, who are there to do certain small things without being fully developed characters. And then that's all they do in the plot. They just stand around, solve plot hole problems, and then just disappear over and over again, when your character almost died. And them somehow being able to remove the curse, even though there was no build up to that at this point. Then you also have the fact that lots of characters really don't do anything, such as the fat friend and the glasses friend, who, yeah, they kind of are there for you sometimes to give you moral support, but they don't really get developed, and they take up a huge amount of screen time considering the fact that they really don't do anything. When the fat friend tries to cheer you up, like I mentioned before, and in the end he doesn't really do much, he just brings you around to eat for a little. Your character does not undergo any form of thinking or reflecting during that period. He just kind of follows along, and then somehow he just feels oh yeah, it's time for me to leave. So the guy really does nothing for you. And he just takes up so much time. And yeah, there's all the art related choices as well that all feel very off. I don't know, personally I find the characters themselves are very serviceable at least. They don't pop, they're not memorable, but they get the job done. The UIs are exceptionally cheap looking, and I get that maybe for the world map itself, you could kind of justify it as them wanting to have multiple states from the different time periods as well as the different destruction state at the end. And maybe that was what caused it to be cheapened out on as well. But like Tales of Vesperia, at the end of the game, you actually go back to the town when it's completely destroyed. And this is the starter town that you can actually explore and run around in as you explore the world. And this was something that stuck with me as well. Like, other games of the era were able to represent the same area in different states in 3D in a way that actually looks very impressive. Like, you can actually run around a town and feel the destruction. But this game, like the fact that they just decided to go with 3 different JPEGs makes it feel exceptionally cheap in my opinion. Then there's the fact that the soundtrack of the game as well, it's exceptionally generic. Like, it's not bad to the point that you don't want to listen to it, but it all feels like very, very generic template music. Like, the opening is generic early 2000s opening anime music. The soundtrack itself is not very memorable. Like, the victory music, especially with that 5-second loop, felt very unimpressive. Like, these are all things that I feel like I will forget, like, within weeks of just not touching this game. And the thing is, like, yeah, you don't want typically OST to like shine through over the game itself, but as we can see from all the different games whose OSTs are still being listened to fondly today, this is something that can allow a game to stand out as well, and it's something that players do enjoy. And like personally for me as well, like victory music, Final Fantasy VIII, or just the Final Fantasy series in general, the victory music is just, it's such an earworm. I feel like it's the kind of thing that will stick with me forever. But when you compare something like that, which is, you actually get this grandiose feeling of having succeeded, right? Well, it just is such an interesting soundtrack in and of itself compared to this 5-second loop. You kind of start to see that this game is like soundtrack overall. It feels like they didn't put too much effort into it either. And when you compile all of these problems with the game together, right, and you consider the price of this game, the impression I get at least is really just that the people who developed this game, they did not really care too much for making an interesting game, as rude as it might be to say that. I do apologize. But when you consider the quality of the game and its peripherals, like its music, its art, and the fact that this game costs as much as like Persona 4 or Tales of Vesperia at around almost $70 at the time, it makes you question, right, like what these people were thinking. Like, if they truly cared about making a good game and a game that was fair for its price, I feel like they would not have charged the amount they did. Like, they would have looked at their game, realized it was not of that high quality, and just lowered the price. But the fact that they didn't, the fact that there were bugs or like very exclusive, well, the fact that they didn't, the fact that there's extremely huge glaring problems with the balance of the game, the poor load times and everything, it really does make it feel like the people who were involved just did not care all too much, you know? So I've been ragging on the game quite a lot till now, but truth be told, there were actually some positives that I took away from it as well. If you consider the fact that you could paralyze the boss infinitely as a feature and not a bug, I pretty much came across no bugs at all throughout my entire playthrough of this game. Nothing failed to load that caused me to restart the game did not crash, stuff did not disappear, statuses did not get resetted. Like, there wasn't anything game breaking to it, which is something that, when you consider most of the games that are releasing in 2022 on launch, I would say this is a benefit in this game's favor. Then there are also some short spurts of the writing for the female main character's story arc, which, while it does not affect the overall storyline, nor does it give the character's development, they did write some pretty interesting like slice of life segments as well, which are, not gonna lie, it makes some of the male characters actually feel a little bit like a heartthrob, just a little bit. Which, who knows, maybe some of the authors of this game's storyline could end up going into write like female-oriented visual novels or something like that in the future. Maybe with more practice, they probably could do it. That and the fact that the plot takes place across multiple time periods where you can see the town develop as it goes from the past to the modern era and stuff like that. That was a bit of a nice touch. I did enjoy looking at the town, even though the town didn't really matter too much to me. Though yeah, that brings me to the end of my conclusion of this game. That overall, while this game does have a small number of things it does right, it just does so much wrong overall that it just feels inexcusably bad. And like, if these problems it had were individually just held in isolation, this game might have not been as badly rated as it was, but the fact that all of these things happened at once was what caused the overall experience to be so bad to the point that people rated it the second worst game of the year. Would I recommend someone play this game? probably not, don't do it. The wiki of the game itself also says not to do it once again, so there's a lot of people saying not to do it, so save yourself the trouble, don't ever suffer through this, but hey, if you actually want to, feel free to get a copy of the game. I don't know if you can actually find a ROM of it anywhere, to be honest. But yeah, thank you all for watching today's video. Like, this actually took quite a long time to make, especially since like I ended up taking quite some time in the middle as well to think things through, and while watching through the videos of what I recorded while I was editing it, it actually caused me to reflect on it quite a lot as well, which is why it ended up taking this long. The video itself is probably going to end up a lot longer than expected as well. Like, initially I expected this to be like a 30-minute video or maybe less, but the more I played the game, the more I looked through like the contents of the game, the more I felt like there were more things I wanted to talk about, which is why it ended up being this long. Some of it might have ended up being ramblings. I do apologize if that's the case. I probably need to work on fine-tuning all of this, but yeah. I'll be looking for another game to play. I have my sights on the game. It'll probably arrive soon, hopefully. It's probably going to be worse than this, and it's going to take me a while to complete, so that game might release. I'll release the video maybe in like a month or two from now, maybe 2 or more, depending on when it's finished, but I'll just release like 2 videos a month from this point onward, probably to try and like maintain some level of consistency. Maybe it's gaming related, maybe it's events related, we'll have to see. But yeah, if you're interested in any of the stuff I've done till now, or more videos like this, do feel free to subscribe. Leave a bell notification thing. I don't remember what that does, but maybe it does something. What else to say again? Oh yeah, I do stream on Twitch as well. If you're interested in like telling me how much you don't like my videos in real life, or well, not in real life, but in real time, you can feel free to drop by there and just give me a hello or something. Don't really stream. Or if you have any more comments on like how I can improve the videos as well, or like on other games you think it will be interesting for me to stream, do let me know. Maybe in the comments, maybe on Twitch, whichever you prefer. But yeah, okay. I'm really gonna need a break now. This game has taken quite a toll on my soul, so thank you all for watching once again. Hope you all enjoyed the video, more importantly, because like this took quite a long time to make, and I really do hope people enjoy it, and that it'll be enjoyable for others to watch it as it was for me to make it. So yeah, you all have a good time. Until the next video, or next time I stream, if you're interested in seeing that, the link should be in the comments down below. I'll be heading off now, so take care, and bye bye.